Andrea, how are you feeling today?
So stressed, but grounded at the same time, if that makes sense.
All right, that's quite a contrast.
It is.
How do you manage to find a balance between both?
I guess one of the best practices is finding time at, at basically every day to, apart from doing the work that needs to be done, kind of to also ground yourself and reflect on the day that's just gone by, and basically to reflect on it, see what you could have done better,
Okay.
understand the challenges that might arise tomorrow and how you can prepare for them today. So it's about grounding yourself in a way where even if you had a bad day, you still kind of reflect on it and understand what went wrong and try to, so basically to avoid the same mistake from happening over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So
You remind me of something that I've started around 2 years ago, and this night, had a bit of a struggle to do it. So I'm not sure if you followed my my story, the latest one, or one of the latest ones, that I do journaling, and I've been doing journaling for almost 2 years now. So I started December of 2 years ago.
consistently.
Yes, every week. So every week on Sunday I do it. Um, the consistency is quite real because yesterday I arrived home at midnight and I didn't feel like doing the journal. I was a bit tired. Not tired, physically tired, but I was tired. I didn't feel like doing it. So you have to sit down, reflect, and reflect on the week. What went right, what went wrong, you could have done better, and you sort of try to make sense of what happened throughout that week. And so it takes a lot of mental energy and mental power. And at midnight, you don't really feel like doing it after a weekend and after a week. So it took a lot of courage yesterday to do it. It takes me roughly around 1 hour and a half
Wow, okay.
so to do it, and then to publish it, and to schedule the content and all of that stuff. But yesterday I tried to do something different, slightly different. So I wrote the journal, and instead of publishing right then and then at 2 a.m. in the morning, I said, at 2 a.m. in the morning, no one's going to see it. So let me schedule it for around 8 in the morning. And so I scheduled it that way. I'm not sure how it will go, whether it will have more reach or it will reach more people, but I tried something a little bit different. But you mentioning stress and grounding yourself, that has been my go-to strategy, or at least one of my go-to strategies for the past 2 years.
I think journaling is quite a powerful thing. So I've recently also started journaling every day, not for that long though. So I do 10-15 minutes, just write down on a small diary. You've noticed that I'm always traveling with a diary. So I have diaries for different uses.
Okay.
And I think there's a certain element of peace that comes with journaling and understanding kind of that element where, because also things happen to us on a daily basis where we don't particularly process them maybe to the full extent. So for example, maybe you've actually achieved something that week, but during your day-to-day hustle,
Yes.
you kind of miss it.
Yes.
And then once you're reflecting back, like, oh wow, actually this today I did this. Like, wow, okay, that's quite an achievement. So I think journaling has a certain element of importance, and I started basically doing it every day now. So
Why every day?
so why every day? That's a good question. I mean, at the moment I'm doing kind of like, there's this monk mode. I'm not sure if you've heard of this
I've
monk
heard of
mode
it.
or the winter arc, and or the 75 hard. People do 75 hard, so
Yes, this
75 days
yes
of
of
hard.
and the, not and the Frisella. Or was it
Mm,
no? Is it Jocko Willink?
could
But
be.
I know about the 75 hard.
A lot of influencers do it. So I'm trying to also
It's the
kind of,
second workout that will kill me. Not because of the time.
and but even 75 hard in the entrepreneurial space, it's also like, for example, setting your non-negotiables every day, and you try to hit them for 75 days straight.
Okay.
It's an element of kind of testing your discipline, testing as a way to get you further towards your goals.
All right.
Not further, basically ahead.
I wasn't aware that it was in other spheres. I'm aware of the 75 hard and the training regimen.
Training regimen, okay.
So, all right. So what is it about? I'm curious now.
Self-development. So it's basically, so the winter arc is the last 100 days of the year. So
Okay.
they started on the 1st October, and you basically dedicate yourself towards something that you are trying to achieve. So, for example, I have a friend of mine who's doing it in a way to lose, for example, 15 kilos
Okay.
or to get fitter. So you set your non-negotiables. For example, no alcohol, no going out on the weekdays, reading every day. It depends on what your goals are. And it's a way to basically, again, set discipline. After summer, you know how summer is, like you're going out, barbecues, socializing, so you typically tend to slack slightly on your self-improvement journey. So this is a way to get yourself back on track. And it's a powerful thing. So I've done it this beginning of this year.
Okay.
Went on a bit of a monk mode where I kind of prioritized work. So I have my own startup, and it takes quite a bit of focusing on that particular, basically sprints. And I've decided to allocate a particular season throughout this year for that. And I've seen big improvements on that regard. So I like to operate a bit in seasons.
Okay.
So
Can you share a little bit more on that?
So there's a season. So for example, between January till May, I was just focusing on work in sprints. So I did some traveling in between, but mainly it was just working. So working towards my startup, trying to prioritize things that will get me closer to my goals, fitness, eating well, reading, very important, and also minimized a bit on the social life basically. So for example, I would only try and go out on the weekends and basically do everything that will get me closer to the goals that I've set, which were working on my startup.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've allowed myself to really enjoy this summer. So last summer was a bit chaotic. So this year I said, after all these last few months, this hard work that I've put in, I should allow myself to ease off and enjoy the summer.
How do you decide what's important for you and what's not?
I set goals.
Yes, but why is it important?
In which regard?
So before you set goals, you need to say, okay, this is important for me, so I set the goal to reach it.
Exactly. So basically, the one element, if I'm understanding the question correctly, basically you need to identify where you want to go. So your endpoint.
Yes, but why is that important?
I mean, that's the number one thing for self-improvement, no?
Yes.
It's part of the journey.
Let me. I share my own experience. So why is the success of Endeavor, which is my business, is important for me? It's important for me because I want to create a community that I can help people through it. So that's why it's important for me. And because that is important for me, I try to set goals in order to increase the community and to provide a better product. So in your case, why is it important for you to distance yourself from the social element and to focus on work and to work in sprints? Why is that important for you?
Because I want to have a successful startup where I can be self-sustained on basically my own company. And also additionally because once you look at, I'm not sure if I'm deviating on the topic or not, but
Go ahead.
Everyone has success, an idea of success.
Yes, agreed.
So my idea of success will be different than your idea of success.
It's okay.
My idea of success is abundance.
Abundance?
Freedom.
Okay.
Basically having the time freedom, the location freedom, and the monetary freedom. So if today I decided to grab my laptop and move to a new country, but also will still be working on my own company, I can do that. So that's one thing I'm striving for.
Okay.
So by setting goals that will get me closer to the successful life that I basically manifest of having, I will set myself one step at a time closer to that goal by prioritizing the elements to get me self-sustained on my own startup.
All right. So if I'm understanding correctly, or at least what I'm hearing is that the most thing that is important for you is being mobile.
and free.
You're free because you're mobile.
Correct.
So you can move around because you're free.
Yeah.
So for you having that flexibility in life to try out different things, that is what's important for you. And then as a byproduct of that is the growth of your business, or a byproduct is your freedom. What would
Kind of, I mean, the business is there at the end of the day to give value to my clients.
Mhm.
So that's the number one goal for, apart from it being a passion of mine, it's also the end goal is to give value to clients.
Okay.
So in terms of basically saving them time. So some businesses save you time, some businesses give you monetary results, some
Mhm.
so as a byproduct of that business, the business that I do, I'm building a structure where it allows me to work from anywhere,
Mhm.
which in the end will give me the mobility and the location freedom.
I understood. I'm smiling because we've dove into we nosedived into the business without explaining what your business actually is.
I was thinking
So
of
I'm
that.
going to ask you the question for the sake of the listeners and for the sake of the audience here. What is your business all about?
So 2 years ago I started Pick a Jet, and as the name implies, it's basically a private jet charter brokerage business. So
It's quite a big word.
it's quite a big word and complex. So in simpler terms, I find private jets for clients. So
Nicely put.
you're the client,
Yeah.
you want to fly from A to B, you come to me, tell me, listen, by tomorrow midday I need to be in London. My job is to find you a private jet and to basically transport you from A to B. Now, while I don't particularly own the jets myself, the network that I've built throughout my career will give me the access to provide you with the jet.
Okay.
So one of the things that I like to say to basically potential clients or people that I meet is, we don't sell time, we don't sell flights, we sell time. Because instead of you having to look for options, checking different airlines, checking different operators for private jets, and trying to figure out what time to book the taxi to the airport or which hotel to book, we handle all of that. So you just tell me where you want to go, your budget, and I will tell you the options that I have for you. You choose the option, payments, and then you show up to the airport in simpler terms.
Mm-hmm. And how did this idea came about?
I mean, my background in aviation goes back to my early teenage years. So I was always into aviation, and I started working in the industry at a very young age. So I was studying aviation as well. And one of the internships that I did when I was still studying was with a private jet company. While not necessarily being part of the plan that I had back then, it kind of opened up a new world for me. And it just stuck. I just found myself loving the industry, the dynamics of the industry, and I was very hungry to learn. So I kept learning. And it got to a point where I was always a bit business minded. So I always had something going on the side since a very young age. It got to a point where I started imagining myself like, one day I will have my own company which involves private jet charters.
Mm-hmm.
And this was back in 2017, so this was quite a few years back. And the beauty of it is growing up, still learning, and basically maintaining the vision and maintaining the idea and basically working towards it. And 2 years ago, I saw the previous business and I was like, now's the time. And I started developing the idea, the product.
Andrea, how did you feel that the time is right? What were your feelings at that point in time?
I was clueless. I just knew that I wanted to do this, but I didn't have any idea how I'm going to achieve what I achieved today or what I'm planning to achieve in the coming future. But then it's all about kind of breaking it down to small actionable steps.
Mm-hmm.
Because building a company relating to aviation is no easy task. So, and in fact, I can't count the amount of people that said to me, tipo, that you're crazy. I'm like, so what? I'll try, you know? So then I think it got to a point where it's all about evolving. So as long as you're moving forward, you're moving forward. And it's about, once you start breaking it down to actionable steps, you start actually identifying progression paths
What was your starting point? How did you start?
by buying the domain.
Okay. The website.
And the website, which I've built myself at this, I'm not sure in the future what it will be, but
No,
at this moment,
same here.
at
I
the
built
point
my
of
own website.
recording,
Yeah.
I've built it myself, not having a single idea on how to build websites. So,
But that's the fun part about starting
That's the
up,
fun
because you get to do a lot of interesting things, which in the future you will deem that I wasted my time over there. But it was still fun, because I think you need to go through a certain experience in order, because the same experience will reinforce or will make you a little bit tougher as well, and a little bit more knowledgeable, of course.
correct.
So I think knowing what goes into building a website, the keywords, the SEO optimization, I think it's good, even if your background is not marketing. At least mine is certainly not. But at least I know a little bit the jargon, and I know what I know what to look out for and what to ask as well. Even if, so let's say you're employing someone, you know what to ask, and you know by the answer that they give, you know how knowledgeable they are and how many times they did it. Because if they surprise you, I mean, it's something that you know, can't really explain it, but something that you know because you've done it as well.
Definitely. And that's the fun part about starting your own business. I mean, most people nowadays start selling stuff. And this was basically what I used to do before. So I used to import a product, sell it, market it, and sell it. This is a completely different business. Completely different. This business runs on network. Network and trust. And 2 years ago, I had none of those. Because I was just no one in the industry. And apart from my personal experience that I've gained throughout the years, I had no network. And one thing that helped me stick through this business was the fact that going into it, I told myself, I'm a person that if I see something, I want it now. So even goal-wise, if I say I want to learn that sport, I go all in. And I expect the results. So I'm very, very driven. But going into this business, I allowed myself to say, this will take time. It's a long-term project. And this helped me also be more patient, and that element of delayed gratification. I tested myself on that. It's about like working, not seeing results. Keep on working, still not seeing results. Keep on working. And then you come at a point where you look back and you're like, oof, I came far. You start seeing small results in different aspects of the business. And I think it's about that. In today's society, we're so used to instant gratification that most people stop after the first month or 2 months. I mean, in your case, you're doing a podcast. I read the statistics where most podcasts don't even get past their 30th episode, I think, something like that.
Something like that. I've heard about it as well. I forgot the number of the episode. I think 30 is a little bit ambitious. I think it was a little bit lower than that.
Could be.
Not sure.
But that's the concept of it. So most people don't see results and they quit.
And sometimes it's hard to see results in it, especially if you're starting. It can be something that is mainstream as well. So podcasts are becoming increasingly popular as well. So it is kind of a wanted product. You know that people want podcasts, but it can still be challenging to attract the right people, attract the niche, identify the niche in the first place.
Exactly.
and to build a community around that. So it's still challenging. Andrea, since 2 years ago, so what was the biggest thing that you had to work on yourself in order for you to be in this position today?
In terms of self-development.
Yeah.
I would say one of the most important aspects, apart from having the discipline, is to work without seeing the results.
Okay.
To keep on trusting myself, trusting the vision, and trusting that I can actually go out there and achieve what I set myself to achieve. And sometimes you have to go through long periods of that. I mean, I've only started seeing bigger results later this year. So, and that's been over 2 years now. So it takes time, especially when you're building something of a larger scale. So one of the most important things I think would be to, if you set your mind to achieve something, trusting that you can kind of like get it done. Because the moment you start doubting yourself is the moment where it's like you're drilling holes in the boat, and you're not trying to fix them up. You know water will start leaking in because doubt will eventually start coming in at certain stages. But if you trust that you can handle patching it up quickly and keep on moving forward, is the most important thing, I think.
What are the moments that cause you doubt? I'm asking some difficult questions, am I?
I mean, we all have been through those family reunions where people ask you, where your relatives ask you, so what are you doing? And you start saying, like, I'm starting to work on this particular project. And they're like, what? Huh? No, you're seeing too big, or maybe, like, but what if you fail? You should start thinking on settling or buying a house, not spending all your income on your side project.
Okay.
Or, for example, self-doubt will start coming in. I mean, again, at points where you've been long in the game, or you've been a few months in the game and you might not be seeing the results, start saying, am I on track? Am I doing the right thing?
Yeah.
Should I be doing something else? So
it's very interesting. I wasn't expecting that you were going to mention the family reunions. Personally, that doesn't affect me. I couldn't care less, to be honest. But I was surprised. What, in my case, what causes doubt is when you're tired. So the small things when you're tired. I mean, my job is to listen to a lot of people because I do coaching and workshops. So there's a lot of listening. So I get emotionally exhausted and mentally exhausted at times. So when you're emotionally and mentally exhausted, there is where the ghosts start to haunt you. And when you're really, really exhausted, so let's say you're going to pitch to a client, and you deal with high net worth clients as well. And when you pitch to a high net worth client, you feel like something in your throat, and that is scary. So let's say you had to do that, then you had a coaching session, then you had to deliver a workshop, and then in the meantime you're writing a proposal. You get tired. So to me, those are the worst moments, or to me, those are the moments where I get doubt. And then I agree with you on, at least I experience the same feeling when I work so hard, but I see no results. But usually that is attached to expectation. So when I expect that I see results and I don't, that's where I get disappointed. But if I do the work and then let it be, then I'm okay with that.
Correct. And one thing that came also to mind just right now, the hardest days are the weekends.
Why?
When you start seeing everyone going out, for example, Friday, Saturday night, and you're in this current mode, for example, the monk mode or whatever. So you're basically not going out. So you're dedicating literally your all to it. And you start seeing your friends going out. Maybe you start getting invites, like come for a drink or join us, or we're going out for dinner, and you start getting that little bit of doubt, like should I go, should I not?
But do you feel that you have to, I mean, you're telling me that, but I wanted to sort of confirm this. Do you feel that it is necessary to lose those kinds of moments for the sake of what you're trying to achieve?
I think it is, if you really want to achieve that. I think it is. And that's why I importantized on the fact that you should also seasonally strategize your year. So allow time to socialize and allow a period of time to work. I think by doing these sprints, they can set you much farther up. Because it's these things that will set you apart from the different
I
individuals.
agree with the sprints. I think that is one of the sort of techniques that I use as well. I agree with the sprints. So, and I'm sure that you've heard about deep work,
Yes.
that you 100% have 2 hours and you have to accomplish this much in 2 hours. But I'm trying to have a balance. So I think I'd rather sacrifice me arriving 2 years later, but still have enjoyed my 20s and now 30s. So I'm not where you said something very interesting the way you pitched your business, in the sense that you're selling time. I don't want time. I don't want to sell my time, or I don't want to lose my time. I want to at least have a balance. So I structure my week to work, and I still work during the weekends as well. But I find, and this is how I work it out. I don't think there is a right or wrong here. I think there is a lot of, and that is why I'm sharing, to give the listeners a different perspective as well, because there are many things of doing things, and there are many good ways of doing things, and there are many bad ways of doing things, and there is just not one way that will take to success. Do whatever works out for you, because some people might, the way I work some people might find it a little bit too erratic. They might not be able to focus, and then your method comes in, because you're able to deeply focus on a specific task for a prolonged period of time. But that might not work for everyone, perhaps because they might not have the capacity now to focus on that prolonged period of time, because focus at that prolonged period of time takes time to master.
And effort.
100%. Focus is not something that can easily be achieved by anyone. Some people perhaps are more, they have more affinity with focus, but some others don't. And they work in micro sprints. So, and when I mention sprints, my day is structured to do a couple of things back to back. So, for example, sometimes I have work, then I have a coaching session, then I have a lecture, and then I wind down. So, back to back things which are of similar nature, perhaps, but they are different. So, after each activity, the more activities I do during the day, the more energized I feel, in a way, until you lay down on the sofa, and then you're done. And even working out. So I'd rather do a workout as soon as I get home, or I go straight to the gym, rather than going home, chill out for an hour, because then you'll not get it done for sure.
100%.
So that is my experience. That is my take on this.
It depends on your goals. I think it depends also what you want to achieve. The problem is that I think it just depends also on the individual,
I think it depends on the individual.
Because I also believe in balance. So I'm not a person that's working 7 days a week, 16 hours a day, non-stop. I mean, I take time out of the week to actually wind down. For example, on my typical Sunday typically involves, it's more wound down, kind of like go out with the motorbike, have a coffee, then read a bit while having a coffee somewhere, then having family lunch, and then basically maybe do some light work in the afternoon, schedule my upcoming week, or if I still have work to do, I get that done. And then typically it also involves going out for a drink or a coffee. So I do find time, and I importantize a lot on that, finding that you should find what works best for you, but you should also allow time to wind down.
Mm-hmm.
But I also believe in that by that little bit of pressure that you put on yourself to achieve something that you give on a particular deadline on, when there's that clock ticking,
Yes.
makes you like, if I don't go, I might get 4 hours of work this evening if I don't go out. Because okay, most people, what happens? I'm not saying this applies particularly to me, but I speak with a lot of people who say they have a dream or they want to work for themselves or build something. And then okay, you might go out on a Friday evening. You might have too many drinks. Then on Saturday you might wake up 10 a.m., 11 a.m., hungover. You probably won't get anything done on Saturday. And then you're like, now I ruined Saturday, I might as well just go out tonight as well or whatever. So, and that starts to add up.
Yeah.
And when you have a goal to achieve, again, it depends. If you are not that hungry for it or that time driven, I guess.
Yes, that needs to be there. That needs to be there. And if it's not, you'll end up going in circles
Exactly.
over and over again. So
Which is
that
what
needs
was
to be
happening
there.
to me at a particular point in time. So, and then you have to understand, what is it that I want? Do I want the pleasure of now?
Yeah.
Or do I want basically the hardship that I have to go through now to basically enjoy the pleasure or whatever comes down the line? And I mean, there was that saying, I forgot the exact saying. It was, everything has a price, everything has a tax in life. So if you enjoy the moment now, you're going to pay that tax later on the line.
Okay, all right.
So I forgot that exact saying. I mean, basically something like that. It's basically relating to the sacrifice you will put in today will make sure that you will have the future basically set.
Yes, and this will sound a little bit bad after what you've said, what you've built up. And here is important to note, and we've touched upon this, that even if you put a lot of effort, success is not guaranteed, and that's that. I mean, it's still a lesson within itself, but it's a frustrating lesson, and then those are the moments where you have doubts. When you put a lot of effort into something, you gave it your 100%, and sometimes your 100% is not enough.
But what is failure? Because for me, failure doesn't particularly exist. Failure is a lesson. And if you have that mentality that failure doesn't exist, you can only learn. If that makes sense for you.
No, I'm thinking about the word failure.
Because okay, you might give your 100% to a particular business. And it fails. And you've gained a very big lesson from it. Maybe you screwed up something with regards to your finances and it went horribly wrong. And you've ended up with a business that's in debt or crashed, whatever. But you've gained a very big lesson from that. So now moving on to something else, you know what you have to avoid. So
Yes.
what if there is no such thing as failure, but only lessons learned?
I'll share my thoughts, what I'm contemplating on. So, it's like a chicken and the egg kind of situation. So, in order for the lesson to occur, does failure need to be in the equation? So, I'm thinking about that. So, yes, there is the lesson. I agree, 100%. But in order for the lesson to occur, we have to realize that we made a mistake, or there was some failing point, that something didn't work. So, in order for the lesson to occur, we need to acknowledge that something didn't work as planned or as anticipated. Is that considered failure? I'm just sharing my thoughts out loud at the moment. So I agree. I think it's the way you see. I think it's our perception when things don't go our way, how we take it. Do we take it as a lesson? Do we take it as an opportunity to learn? Or we stay with feeling like a failure? So, not sure if that makes sense either.
It does in a way. But if one embodies the fact that failure is non-existent to you or to that particular person is going to approach everything that comes as a lesson, not as a failure.
Yes, I don't
So-
think we should stop at the failing point. I think anything can, so every circumstance in life can teach us something, either
Correct.
about ourselves or either about the world around us. Um, but I'm not afraid of calling something a failure, not to remain stuck with that. Not that is not what I mean. And it's interesting because every word means something different to every one of us. So in my case, when I say failure, it's something that ultimately I derive a lesson from it as well. But I agree, might be some people which associate things with failure and they remain stuck on the failing concept. I don't think that is healthy, because if you fail at one thing doesn't mean that you are a failure, and there might be some who take it to the next level, that associate that mishap with their own identity, and that's very painful, unnecessarily painful at times. You don't need to feel that way because everyone makes mistakes. I'm not saying it as an excuse, but it's true. I mean, we only learn from mistakes.
Correct.
So we only learn from failures in a way. So I think the failure has to be there, but not from a damaging point of view. That is not what I mean. So you have to acknowledge the failure and then you take out the lesson. At least that's how I process it.
In a way, you are right. It's just a matter of perception, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also about understanding that not everything will go your way in life, and sometimes
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a long
Mm-hmm.
long process.
Oh, off camera, we were having a very interesting discussion, and we left it for this round table, and we were sharing an experience that we are both in it. The fact that our businesses is targets a different generation, and because of our age, sometimes we are not seen as credible or experienced enough to, let's say, know what you're talking about. And what I've learned, and then share what I've been told as well. What I've learned is that experience is very important. 100%, no one can take experience from anyone. It's there to stay. At the same time, what I've been told is that because of the age, you can give something a little bit different as well because you have a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure whether you can relate on that.
I mean, definitely, it's a very good, valid point, to be very honest with you. As in, I think it all boils down to the person that you are interacting with. I mean, you can have a 40-year-old who's immature with maybe a lot of experience, but maybe certain experiences she doesn't know how to handle them properly, and you can have the other way around. I think it's about, at least from the business that I am involved in, trust is built also throughout the conversations you have with clients.
Yeah.
But trust cannot be built if you don't get the opportunity to build trust.
Yes.
So for me, in order for me to be able to build trust with you, you have to give me the opportunity. You have to allow me in your circle, in your conversation. So it also depends. It's a very hand-in-hand type of situation where I mean, regarding business, it's a very tricky situation. Experience-wise, as you were said, I think it depends on the industry, but a younger age, from my perspective, in an industry where everything is being done almost the same for the last 40 years can be a good thing. Because you can come in with new ideas,
Yeah.
new innovation, and this kind of things. But trust is a very tricky question to answer, I think, with regards to that.
It takes time to build. The way I explain it, because we can understand this, because we're in this situation, but the people who are not in business or don't have a business, I explain it in this way. Obviously, I will summon my background in HR. So, but we've all been there. So we've all been a 16-year-old or 18-year-old trying to get into the world of work, our first job, either be it a summer job or either a full-time position. When you're there, you go for your first interview, you know nothing about the world of work. So the employer has to trust that your values, your upbringing, what you've learned in your extracurricular activities, you will add some value at the place of work. But if no one gives you that experience and expecting all of the items in the job description to be ticked to perfection, no one will give you an opportunity. But we are all given that opportunity because it's the world of work, right? So people need to give that opportunity until you get started. It's the same in business. In business, it's a little bit more tricky because you have to work a little bit harder to find the people who are going to invest their money into you, into your idea. It's a concept at this stage. But it's very similar in nature because, and as you mentioned, someone needs to be willing to give you a, hey, Andrea, I think I'll give him a chance. We'll start with a small project and then we'll see. Someone needs to give us that opportunity.
You've said something that triggered a thought, and but I'm not saying that I was this at 16 years old, but the nowadays I'm still considered to be a young startup entrepreneur, and considering that my clientele is typically around the late 40s, 50s, I think the most important thing is to be, because if you don't have the experience, but you're a person of value, I think that can set off a good start. So, okay, let me just give you an example. So let's say there's this particular 16-year-old who's a freak in fitness, and he's trying to go into the world of work. If you can be, or let's say selling something in his own business, he can start the conversation on something that he can provide value on. So maybe he can be interacting with you. You don't know each other, and he can tell you, maybe I can help you out by sharing a few tips and tricks on how to become better at the gym, or how to improve your nutrition or your diet. So he's giving you value. So by being a person of value can put you into situations where you allow these other persons or people or whatever to basically open up to the fact that they allow you in their circle, and that's how you start. That's how you start the journey.
I'm going to pause a moment because you've said some important stuff. So I'll go back a little bit so that we can go back to this point. How would you recognize that you have value? That's the first step. How would you say that you can recognize that, hey, I'm a person of value? What do you need to have?
I mean, value can also be something small. For example, let's say you have a particular skill. By doing that skill, you're giving value. So let's say I introduce you to a 17-year-old who's an expert in video editing. He doesn't have any experience, but he can give you value because he's good at something. So you don't necessarily have to be a master or something like, you know.
Mm-hmm. But you need to have to believe. You need to believe in yourself.
Yes.
That, hey, I know this.
Correct.
You have to have the belief. It takes. Not everyone can do that. Not everyone has the belief, especially at a young age. Not everyone can say, listen, I'm good at this thing, at least what I've learned so far, I know how to do it. And not everyone is willing to give any year to a 16-year-old.
True, but he can do it for free for you.
100%, and they can give you a fresh perspective. So, I'll share an example that on this. So, I think it was 3 years ago. So, I still do, but I've reduced quite a bit. I give private lessons of Italian, right? And I had one student, which I'm remembering now because I'm in touch with the student at this very moment. He's involved in a youth group, and he asked me to deliver a workshop on stress management for young people. And because of my involvement in Scouts, he thinks that I can combine these two. Anyways, and I never met the student. So I was doing this lesson. I was teaching this student Italian, and I never met the student, so it was all the time online, and I never saw his face. But the way he speaks, and he used to give me some suggestions on video and how to post and all of this kind of stuff. And the way he spoke and the way he was interested in what I was doing, I said, I think this person's really trying to help. So combining with what you're saying, I think being genuinely interested to help someone and interested in what others are doing, I think will get you a long way.
100%.
So if you're in doubt whether your skill is good enough or not at the present moment, being genuinely trying to help someone, I think will give you the confidence in time.
I mean, we all started from somewhere. And I mean, the one thing that my friends joke about this, but I'm known to be that guy that always is trying something different. And I think that also can be something positive, that can be a good thing for young teens, or to try as many things as possible. Different hobbies, different video editing, whatever. Just try as many things as you can. Because then I basically, after trying for so long, you find something that sticks, and maybe you say, this is something that is of like super big interest for me. So, and then you start learning more and more and more and more and more, and you start going down that rabbit hole of learning on that particular topic, whatever. And without you knowing, you're actually becoming good into that topic. And yeah, you can go, you can very quickly nowadays become a person of value if you identify what you're good at. So it's all about trying, learning, and basically having a student mindset regardless of how old you are. It's always about learning and evolving.
And going back to what you said, I think it's a nice way of placing yourself, that if you are at a point where you know your value, or you have done a little bit of self-work and internal work to identify what you're good at and what you really enjoy, even if you're at a young age, I think starting a conversation with someone who's more experienced with you, saying what you can bring to the table because of what you've learned so far in life, I think that's a very good starting point of initiating a conversation, perhaps, because building a network starts with a conversation.
Correct.
And then you start to identify, you start to see this person, we agree on this element, we share a similar value on this, we share a different opinion. We are contrasting. Perhaps I see things from a different point of view, and the other person sees things from a different point of view, but they are aligned. So you start becoming more familiar on these terms as well. I'm going to flip a little bit the dynamic of the conversation, and I'm going to shift our attention to YouTube, because you've mentioned this a couple of times. You have a video that's doing really well. It's the Carnivore video. What's the story behind that video?
So just a brief background, I'm also into creating YouTube videos, content on self-development and these kinds of topics. And this year I've set a goal that I need to be consistent with posting. And so far I stuck with one video per week, which I'm very happy with, considering that this is extra.
Yeah.
But this is just me stimulating my creativity aspect.
Quite good for YouTube, one video every week. It's quite good.
And again, that's been another topic, another situation where you post, no result. And then you start seeing that little bit of crack and some sunshine coming through the crack. This Carnivore video was one of them. So I'm a big fitness guy. I mean, basically I've been training now for quite a few years, and I have a very different perspective on training. So I don't train for size or to become huge. I train for overall fitness. And so funnily enough, back in 2019 I was quite chubby, and I've lost down the weight by understanding how nutrition works. And it's been another journey, improving bit by bit. understanding what's good, what's bad, and basically the dynamics. Till a few years ago, I've developed a particular condition. So I had IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome. So it's a condition where your stomach is unable to handle certain types of food because of an inflamed part of the digestive part. And I've been a few years like trying to avoid this, avoid that, but eventually nothing works. Until last March, I was speaking with a colleague of mine, a particular colleague of mine, and he was like, I've started this carnivore diet. And I think it will benefit you if you give it a shot. I'm like, I had an idea what this carnivore diet was, but I didn't understand what it entails. So basically, the carnivore diet, apart from having different stages, it's basically anything that comes from animals. Literally. So, no soft drinks, no cooking oils, animal food.
Okay.
So, cheeses are allowed, eggs are allowed because they come from an animal. You can eat chicken, fish.
I thought it is meat based for some reason because of the
It is,
carnivore element.
it is meat based, but you can also do fish. You can allow yourself to eat fish.
You can eat veg?
No,
No. All right.
nothing else.
Nothing else. Okay.
So literally,
No fruits, no veg.
no fruits, no veg, no carbohydrates, no sugars, nothing. It's very, very strict. And you cook with butter, because butter is from milk. And you buy the purest form of butter, ideally not the common ones. And you start to go down this rabbit hole of like understanding how the food industry works. So I've been carnivore. I did the carnivore diet for 6 months, strict, no slacking, so not even one day. And last 2 weeks ago, I was abroad in Portugal, and I was like, you know what? I should test out again to see if I've improved my health.
And in those 6 months,
I felt amazing.
Okay. Your stomach felt better.
Yes.
Okay.
I started having problems with my bowels. I stopped having problems, the bloatiness, the lack of energy, feeling constantly like out of energy.
Okay.
The bogginess that comes from eating carbohydrates.
Yeah.
So the first 6 months were the adaptation phase. The first 6 weeks were the adaptation phase, which were quite hard.
Yeah.
So you're literally reprogramming your body on the way you digest food. After that, it started to calm down. And I started noticing more energy, more focus. I started noticing that I was also gaining more muscle in the gym. And the people will tell you, oh, you're not eating carbohydrates, how are you going to improve? But I've actually gained about 4 kilos of muscle in a time span of 2-3 months. And overall, I was feeling much better. It's a very hard diet to maintain, especially in the beginning, because you're having these cravings. And that's when you start to understand more about...
Where do the craving comes from? Is it because of you're eating less, or the taste?
Sugars.
Sugars. Okay.
You start to walking in the kitchen after you've just ate, and you're like, I'm missing something. And you start to notice these trends, especially in the beginning, where you start to understand maybe the food that I eat is causing like a sort of addiction. And then you start to look more into it and understand more and how sugar works, or for example how carbohydrates work, which carbohydrates are a form of sugar. And you start to understand maybe people nowadays, that's why they don't feel so good overall. And you hear a lot of people saying that they have problems with this, maybe it's all coming from the food.
Okay.
And from the last 2 weeks I was in Portugal, I tested out ice cream. I started drinking milk again.
But milk comes from animals.
Yes, but before I was dairy intolerant due to the IBS. So I would only dream of having something with milk.
Okay.
Because my body would not be able to handle it. So I started noticing, okay, actually, it seems like the body now is starting to adjust again.
Okay.
And I can now have a normal cappuccino or a flat white or whatever. And you start to understand, like, okay, maybe I should test out something else. And you're eating again, for example, certain types of foods that you could not eat before, and they do nothing. They have no effect. So turns out this carnivore diet actually really did do its thing. It healed. And then I looked more into it, the why.
Mm-hmm.
So the way the body handles and digests meat is very different than carbohydrates. And by eating anti-inflammatory foods, because the diet is very clean, you try to minimize, it's very unprocessed basically,
Mm-hmm.
because you cannot eat like breaded chicken strips that you buy from the supermarket. That's not allowed. You start to research a bit more on, and I started researching more, and I started to understand why. And basically, in short, it's when your body eats unprocessed food, it doesn't cause the inflammation throughout the bowel. So then what happens? Your body starts to heal. And what happened? I had to, there's the saying, trust your gut, trust your gut.
Okay.
How the gut is your second
Yes.
mind. And I noticed that I actually, through research, I understood that serotonin, I think it's serotonin, is the happy chemical, right?
Dopamine. Well, both have an effect.
I think it's serotonin though. It's basically developed in the gut.
Okay.
That's why we say trust your gut. Your gut is your second mind. So if you have an unhealthy gut,
Mm-hmm.
results to
It affects your mood,
your
the way.
mood, the way you think. You start feeling like this heaviness effect in your head, unable to maybe take certain decisions. So what started happening? Once I started to understand, once the body started healing itself, I started noticing that I've been feeling better overall. Happier moods, more balanced, like I can think properly. I can focus much better than I used to do before. We all have that. We all had that afternoon crash after you eat a big plate of pasta for lunch, and then you feel like crap after, and you end up wasting the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that. I can have a 500, 600 gram ribeye steak and still go do 8-9 hours more of work after that. And you won't believe me until you actually try it. The thing is that to start it off, it takes quite a bit of mental persistence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's not easy, but the results are proven. If you read the comments on the video, I think that video has about, I'm not sure, but about 100 something comments, and most of them are people saying, I'm 60, I healed this with carnivore. I'm 55, I tried carnivore for 6 months, will never go back. It helped me, whatever. So
Okay.
this is something people should start.
Mm-hmm. I'm wearing my student hat here. So, in my mind, perhaps you can help me clear this out. There's the carnivore diet and the vegan diet. You saw this coming, right?
Yes.
Can you elaborate on this?
So the problem, this is just my personal opinion, okay? So
Yes, we
not
will get a
to-
lot of. We're going to get some hate, but let's say not a lot, but some hate.
I'm
About.
just speaking from my personal opinion here. There's two types of vegan diets, to my understanding. There's the traditional one, the one that's most common, the one that's marketed the most, and then there's the raw vegan diet. The raw vegan diet is similar to the carnivore,
Mm-hmm.
but vegan.
Yeah.
And that's actually a very good diet for people to try if they want to achieve the same results or similar results.
Mhm.
Because there are people that done the vegan diet, the raw vegan diet, and
The raw vegan diet is when you don't eat the processed vegan stuff.
correct.
Okay.
And I believe, I'm not a big guy on vegan, so I might be wrong in this. I believe that you only eat a certain types of vegan food or vegetables that
Okay.
don't have the inflammatory purposes
Mhm.
that cause the problems. So that's something that's, I would say, if you're on that, go for it. That's good. I'm just not particularly too keen on the other vegan diets.
What I'm curious about, I'm not sure whether you can answer, but I'm just going to share my curiosity. What I'm curious about is that the carnivore, which is plantless, and the plant-based diet. So those are a little bit contrasting, perhaps, because they are a little bit contrasting because of the fact that you can't eat plants, and so one is 100% no non-plant, and the other one is 100% plant-based. So not sure if you have any knowledge about that.
I can only speak from my perspective. And while I am still waiting to go do the blood work because I'm back on the carnivore after my holiday,
Yeah.
because that's another thing. Like throughout my holiday, I started slacking a bit. I was still animal-based, but for example, I have a bit of a sweet tooth, so I started indulging into a bit of ice cream, bit of that, bit of that. And I started noticing the same effects coming into place while my body was handling the food very well. It wasn't causing problems with the digestion. I started noticing those effects of feeling like after eating, I don't feel like doing anything, lack of energy, feeling a bit like the mental clarity is starting to.
But does food like veg and fruits can cause IBS?
There are certain fruits or vegetables that are high on anti-inflammatory. They have high inflammatory purposes actually.
All right. I'm not
I
aware
don't
of
know.
this, so I'm not. I'm
I
not
mean,
sure. I'm just asking out of
I
curiosity.
don't know the specifics, but when I was on IBS and I was on the medication for that, and I was going through that period, even the medical staff told me avoid this vegetable, don't take this vegetable, don't take this fruit, because when those fruits, I'm not sure if it's high fiber fruits or don't quote me on this, but I had to avoid even vegetables on the low FODMAP diet, which is what they will prescribe you if you have IBS or anything similar.
And that was what drove you to the carnivore diet.
After years
Yeah.
of, yeah, it's impressive actually. It's something that people should
interesting.
do their own research on. A lot of people will tell you a lot of things about it, but I think it boils down to that particular person to do his own research and understand if that diet is for them or not.
Okay.
It's, for me, it's turned now into a lifestyle in a sort of way where I feel much better as I am.
I'm glad that you're feeling better.
So, but everyone has their own also opinion on this. But
Yeah.
people should just go watch the YouTube video.
We'll include it in the link. Right?
Also, read the comments, because don't take my word for it. Read also what the other people are saying about it.
I think in general, when it comes to dieting and even exercising, there are things that work. They are very subjective that you just have to find out your own answer through trial and error.
Correct.
And this applies in many things in life, but perhaps particularly and to keep with the same topic, dieting and training. Every exercise hits differently, and every dish hits different to people. So I would say that there's a little bit of trial and error, even in the person. So it's like having a second opinion from someone. So even if you go to a nutritionist or a personal trainer, it's okay to ask a little bit around and to try different things. Because some people have different opinions, and some things might work better for you than other methods. Andrea, we have some questions from our audience. So I saw a glimpse of the shortest one. I think we've answered this, but I will tell you just in case. How do you energize yourself? I think we've just answered this.
Energize myself.
Yes.
In terms of nutrition or.
Not too sure. So if you want to have a different take on it, you answered the food-related thing. Perhaps you can delve a little bit more.
Energize myself. I mean, for me, energizing myself is doing things that I enjoy doing that don't involve me thinking for example, about work. So, sport is one big thing. And a good conversation. For example, like we're having, this gives me good energy, so then I feel much better after it. Energize myself.
You mentioned reading.
Reading, yes.
You mentioned the bike ride.
Bike ride. As in, those are all hobbies.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think those are the main ones. And sometimes having time by yourself. Solitude.
Yeah.
Not loneliness.
Yes,
Solitude.
yes, yes.
It's very different.
And self-talk is good. We all do it.
We all do it. I mean, if you're not doing it, you're missing out. Manifestation happens. So,
That's true.
and I've experienced this firsthand as well. So
The other ones are quite long, so not sure if they are addressed to me. Let's start with the first one. Did you ever seek a mentor to develop your idea? 1. 2. It's actually in the same question. All right. What was your biggest difficulty? 3. What's the biggest lesson you've learned through this journey? So those are the 3 questions into one. Let's start with the first one. Did you ever seek a mentor to develop your idea?
yes. And so the first time I seek the mentor was March this year. And I was at a point where I thought I had the business up to, like, in my mind I had nothing else to improve at that moment in time. And I remember I met this particular person who's also on a journey but way farther ahead. He's also way older than me. And we've met and we started nitpicking stuff. And at that moment in time I was taking a lot of notes. And he started asking a lot of questions where I found myself not knowing how to answer. And upon reflecting more on that, obviously after that session I felt quite... Imagine you're up here knowing or thinking that you might have a finished product, and then after 1 hour later, with the questions that have been asked or the things that have been raised, you basically say like, oh, like I need to go back to the drawing board because there's so many things that I haven't thought about.
And
or
the self-doubt creeps in.
That was a very big point of where doubt crept in, especially coming from someone who's ahead, because you typically don't take a lot of, from people who are. But so yes, I did seek a mentor, and then after March I went back to the drawing board. I worked on the business and on the things that basically needed attention. And then I met him again last month.
Okay.
We were still a bit in touch here and there. And obviously there was a drastic improvement, both in the way I speak about the business, both on the things that he told me about back in March. And also, that's the thing, like, let's say I met again this mentor,
and this mentor is within the same industry?
No.
Okay, it's
different.
Okay.
But let's say I met this mentor again, and I would not have acted on the things he would have said. Like, he would tell me, listen,
you're wasting my time.
So the fact that I showed interest and I took what he told me very seriously and worked and improved on, I think that's also a very important thing, and it's also approaching it with an open mind. So yes, in short, I do have a mentor.
Okay. I feel that these questions are more addressed to you. So, what was the biggest difficulty? Not sure in what context.
Accepting it. Accepting that...
You need a mentor.
No, I don't think that was the kind of taking critique.
Okay.
And moving forward. It's like then the doubt effect, kind of like. So I think that was the biggest difficulty. And also, we all develop this ego throughout our journey, thinking that we know it all, or we might know more than other people. But at the end of the day, it's about grounding yourself and not acting out of an emotional state. Because when the mentor met me back in March, and after this particular session, I left that session like feeling like, if I would have acted out on an emotional state, I would have shut off on the things that he told me that need improvement and would not have improved. So then it's just about taking a step back like maybe sleeping on it and waking up in the next day with a clear mind and tackling it with an open mind. So I think that's the most important thing. So that's been.
I'm reflecting on my own experience on this matter, so
Anything you want to share?
I'm thinking. Thank you for asking. So, just in summary, just to continue the conversation, I don't have a formal mentor, but I've been trying to seek someone who can guide me. But I think this podcast serves a very good platform for me to be mentored by experts in the field. So I've had the privilege and honor to have some good conversations around this table. Um, Next week will be the 49th episode. So at least what's out there, I have had 49 conversations. Those are around almost 100 hours of conversation.
That's good.
If we say that a conversation lasts around 2 hours. So that has been that kind of mentoring for me. I think the biggest difficulty for me is to say, crap, they're right. Accepting that you're doing something which is not good. And your head is good, you have a process, and accepting that hey, you're not right on this. There are people who are a little bit more experienced than you, have been in business for longer, and you know how it works. At the same time, it's very tricky because sometimes you have to trust your gut, to mention some that we've already touched upon. Sometimes you know, I know they're right, but I wanted to give it a shot. But then you have to determine to what extent you're giving it a shot. So for me, that is the difficulty, to gauging to what extent I can give it a shot before calling it quits. So that is my take on it.
Yeah, I mean that's a good one, to be honest. No, I mean mentors are extremely important, and if anyone is doing anything business-wise, I think you should. I really, really, really believe that everyone should have a mentor, a mentee, someone who's at that level, at their level, and a mentee. Because a mentor will obviously help you grow. Someone who's at the same level as you will motivate you or will help you because he understands the same journey that you guys are going through. And someone who's a mentee, who's maybe starting out and you are guiding, will keep you. You need to remain accountable.
And gives you a different perspective.
That's also true. So I think those are the three main important things that everyone should have.
I agree. It's like being in the gym.
Yeah.
It's like having a gym buddy, like the mentee, having the personal trainer, someone who can guide you, and whether we like to admit it or not, when we start going to the gym, we like to show off what we know about the gym and how to do curls and how to do pull-ups and all of this fun stuff. So it's like going to the gym, but in business. So
that's true. That's very true.
Next question, it's in the same question. So, what's the biggest lesson you've learned through this journey?
There are things that I don't know. The biggest thing. I think one of the biggest things was that how important a mentor can be, to be honest.
Okay.
And I think those. I mean, at the moment, that's the one thing that I can think of. The most important thing. I'm not sure if you have any.
I'm thinking about was the most important lesson that I've learned.
Throughout mentorship.
I can't really say much about mentorship, but in your, let's say, I'm taking it from an entrepreneurial point of view. So in the case of what I've learned so far in entrepreneurship.
The biggest lesson.
Yeah. It's having a mentor still the biggest thing that you've learned?
I mean, it's up there, but I think it's the biggest lesson. There's so many things that I've learned that I can't think of a particular one in specific, but
I'm going to chip in here because we've discussed it off mic. I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, and I think that you can and at least agree that it's up there as well, is sharing the journey, either online or with your friends or with your network or with the people that you meet. I think sharing the what really goes into or recounting why you started the podcast, why you started your business. I think sharing that story will not only reinforce why you're doing what you're doing, but it can also inspire other people as well. So I think there is a lot of power in sharing your journey. I think that's one of the greatest lessons I've learned so far.
And you're kind of developing a personal brand
Yeah,
alongside,
yeah.
which is crucial. Definitely. I mean, that's been something that I've been working on recently. And it's also good for you to look back and understand how far you've come. One of the when I'm feeling like doubt is creeping in, I go back to my first YouTube video. And I'm like, okay, I actually came quite far. Why should I stop this right now?
I I want to delete my very first couple of
should not.
videos,
You
but
really
I've
should not.
decided to keep them.
Because people, even if you eventually down the line you will become successful,
Yeah.
you have an attestation basically that I showed you that I've came from nothing and I've built up
Yeah.
what I have. And you can look it up. So it's there. So that's the beauty of it. It's about
Agree.
the documentation part of it is very important. And I believe people should do it. And if you don't want, if you're not doing it particularly for business, maybe you should do it even as a challenge for yourself to keep yourself accountable. Maybe if your goal is to lose weight or to become a healthier individual or to learn something. So I think it's a good.
I'm going to choose one now because we have two and they're quite long as well. So I'm going to choose one because we still have a rapid fire question at the very end. So I think there's one which is particularly interesting to you. So, how do you handle the uncertainty and risks when launching your startup? And what advice would you give to startup entrepreneurs?
What is the first part again?
How do you handle the uncertainty and risks when launching your startup? And what would be your advice to people starting out?
I mean, you have to understand first of all that you need to risk to gain. That's proven. So nothing easy will come without risk. Nothing worth having will come without risk. So that's one thing to understand. So if you're not willing to risk, you're not open to gaining. And how do you handle risks? I believe it's all about taking calculated risks. It's about understanding what could go well and what could go wrong, and then deciding if you basically understand, should I move forward with this or should I maybe take another approach? But you shouldn't be scared of risks. I think that's the biggest thing, that nowadays people are so basically scared to take risks that they just leave it at the idea stage. So taking calculated risk is about understanding what could go wrong and what could go well. So would you be able to reread
Sure.
the question?
It's a long one.
It's a long.
I read it all together.
Yes.
Or the last part. All right. How do you handle the uncertainty and risks when launching your startup? I think you've covered that. And what advice would you give to startup entrepreneurs?
One thing I didn't mention in my previous point is to document. Write down pros and cons. What can I achieve? What can I not? And by writing it down, you are also visually.
Sort of like a SWOT analysis.
Yes. But if you write it out, I find it very beneficial to actually not write it on my phone, but scribble it down. So that's something, because then you can also go back to it and you know what you've basically put on that paper. What advice? just go for it. I mean, just go for it, literally. Whatever you set your mind to achieve, just go for it. Like, if you believe in it, go for it.
And what I was thinking ties in very well with what you just said. Go for it and persevere.
Yes.
So, and what I mean by persevere is that, and at first, it will not make sense even to you, because when this is like when you have something in mind, you say it and you say, that doesn't really make sense. In my head, it sounded much better than when I expressed it articulately. And persevering is because when you're formulating your idea and you're refining your idea. So if it doesn't work out in the first 6 months, it's okay, it's quite normal. Just give it a year or two before ditching completely the idea. Try to exhaust all of the resources that are around it before completely ditching the idea. And if you ditch the idea, don't be afraid to repick it in a couple of years' time, because you would have matured along the way as well. At least that would be my take on this, because in my journey at Endeavor, now I've been running my business for 3.5 years, and I'm always learning. But I think it's this year that my vision of what I want to do with Endeavor really became clear to me. So, and it makes sense that I want, because it's true. I want to provide companies with holistic solutions to tackle people-related challenges, coming from HR consultancy. It can be coaching, it can be counseling, which I don't provide, what my colleagues do. It can be strategy, it can be HR support. So helping companies from a holistic point of view when it comes to people. At first, because I was thinking as a solo entrepreneur, I was thinking what I can offer as Daniel, and I'm limited to what I can offer because my time is finite, and I wouldn't say my knowledge is finite, but my area of expertise is finite as well. I don't believe that we can be jack of all trades, but there are elements that we are more in tune with, or we are more experienced with, and that is where you have to bring in people who can do a better job than you at certain areas. So I'm a very firm believer of that, and because that is what I believe, I can provide the best product to the client. I can't do it on my own, at least. This is what I believe. So anyway, but
want to add one other thing. It's all about also finding your why. Because if you know why you're doing it, you won't stop. You just won't stop till you get there, and that's the thing. A lot of people focus on the output or stress about the output. You should focus on the input. For every action, there's an equal and opposite force. If you focus on the input, something will come out of it. If it's good, you progress. If it's bad, you take it as a lesson and you move on. So focus on the input and understand your why. It's very important, because by knowing why you're doing something, you can even be in the middle of a very big storm. You will still keep on pushing forward, because that why will drive you forward. And that's very, very, very important for anyone considering going on any type of journey or whatever.
Nice. Andrea, we're nearing the end of our episode, and I didn't advise you of this before, but because you've heard a couple of previous podcast episodes. So at the very end, we formed like a tradition that I summon the fishbowl. You pick one question, you read it out loud, and you answer it as best as you can in the shortest time possible.
Okay.
It's a personal growth-related question, and it's random.
What's your approach to lifelong learning? Having a student mindset, I think, would be approaching life with a student mindset.
Okay.
Always wanting to learn. That will. I think that's the way I would approach it.
Thank you, Andrea. I wish you all the very best in your startup.
Likewise.
And hopefully we can collaborate as well together.
Definitely.
So thank you for being here. Hope you enjoyed the episode.
Hopefully episode number 2, sometime in the future when we are.
For sure. Thank you, Andrea.
Pleasure.